Ah, Cameron,
Hello.
hi. Okay, we're in. This is exciting.
Yeah,
After all of our trial and error.
I know. How are ya?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm getting my
Good. Happy Tuesday.
happy Tuesday.
What a colorful studio.
Yeah, thank you. It's I just got done pouring the resin pieces behind me here, so uh,
Ah,
yeah,
so
uh,
exciting.
yeah.
Wow, that's going to be so fun to see how they come out, like seeing them. I've seen videos of you pouring, I think, or
Uh,
taping, but never when it's quite that like early on, I think.
yeah, yeah. I'm excited to see where it goes for sure.
Okay, so let me just do a quick intro for anybody who's watching. So I'm Christine. I am the GM at Sorel, and we're talking today to one of our newer artists. So we're going to talk to Cameron. Cameron, you are located in Richmond, Virginia.
Okay,
Yes.
in
Okay,
Virginia.
great. So I was actually born in Virginia. So yeah. Um, so I think we'll start with if you just do a little quick walkthrough. I think everybody would probably like to see the inside of your studio.
Sure.
And then we'll move on and we'll do a little bit more talking about kind of the background, your artistic background and, kind of more the inspiration behind your work. Just so everybody knows, I just want to quickly say this.
Yeah.
We have done a lot of testing with our video. If anything drops, what I will do is I will post it right away just so that we don't lose the tour and the conversation that we've done thus far. And then I'll just restart it and we'll resume. So just as like a little note, anyone can pop back in and everything will be available on our on our Instagram to view after the fact if you can't watch the whole thing or if we get lost at any point. So and now I pass it over to you, Cameron. You can take us on a little walkthrough.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm gonna step behind the camera here.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, so I guess I'll start with storage over here. It's a pretty, I like to have a space that's functional, not really any distractions, just sort of a place that I can come and get work done. And so here's one of the bigger assemblage pieces that I just finished up. So I'm super excited about that one. Um, and here are the resin pieces that I'm working on. Um, So I'm really excited about how this most recent pour came out. Some super interesting color things happening there. Um,
Wow.
so this is another assemblage piece that I recently finished up. I am actually about to redo the frame for a client who wanted a darker frame. I usually do um, these whitewashed wood frames, as you can see here, kind of some of the grain peeking through, which I really like. But this client wanted a darker, more like espresso stain. So that's what's going on there. This is my rolling table, which I love so much.
Yeah.
Um, so a lot of this stuff in here I built myself as well. So this rolling table, which I was pretty proud of, and then this is my storage area over here with the carpeted bars. So I'm kind of a nerd about just I don't know functional stuff and how to optimize the studio space, so that I can be super productive. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, so I've got a couple assemblage pieces that are in various stages of progress over here. This one laying on the tape, the bigger one is finished, but I just thought I'd show you guys. So, and then we got the bikes over here and the lawn equipment. So, yeah, the miter saw, of course, is very important. So, and then
Yeah.
here is my huge stack of scraps for assemblage pieces. Um, so, yeah, that's what we got going on.
Wow, amazing. And Cameron, are you in a sort of like like, where did you find your studio space? Is this like just is it part of your house? Is it like part of a more formal artist studio area? Where did this, where is this? Is this a garage? Where are you?
It's a garage here. Do you want me to just take you outside real quick?
You don't have to. I
Okay.
was like, the area itself is really, when you're like looking at you've got your bikes in there, and it's like very conducive to the work you do with your saw and everything. But I was like, is this actually,
Right.
it didn't look quite like a regular sort of studio space you see in one of the like artist residence type places.
Yeah,
So
yeah. No, yeah. So this is just our house here. I bought the house a couple years ago, and with one of my main goals of buying a house was I could just get a place with a big garage and sort of have that be my studio.
yeah.
And so I did all the insulation and drywalling in here, which again is something I'm like in kind of a nerdy way, like a little bit proud of, that I sort of took it from kind of a bare bones space and now it's
Yeah.
like not extravagant by any means, but gets the job done.
Yeah, I think once you're a homeowner, anything that you do is a win in the
Yeah,
home.
for sure.
It
For
doesn't have
sure.
to be fancy as long as it's something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. Okay. So we'll jump into questions. But if anybody, just so everyone knows who's watching, if anyone has questions that you want to pop into the comment section, I will do my best to get to them, and we'll ask Cameron all of your anxious questions. So first of all, let's just start with, we know you're in Virginia. We mentioned that already, but where are you from originally? And then we'll talk a little bit more about your artwork and style.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Harrisonburg, Virginia, which is about 2 hours west of Richmond in the mountains of Virginia, which is where James Madison University is. It's kind of how
Yeah.
most people are familiar with that. So that's where I went to college for art school.
Cool.
Then yeah, I moved to the Richmond area pretty much right after college. So
Nice. Okay, so we've kind of talked a little bit. We've seen the different. I was going to ask about your artwork and your style in general, but we've kind of gotten now a good idea of your assemblage pieces versus your resin pieces. So I'm going to
right.
skip and just say how. I know you said you went to school at James Madison, but how did you really get started as an artist? So professional working artist. Is it just like straight out of college, just went and did it, or was there a little bit more of a a curveball to the journey?
Yeah, no, I mean, gosh, I mean, art is such a difficult thing that I don't know. It doesn't really seem like the type of thing that it's something that you can just sort of decide to do it one day and then be successful. I mean, at least not for me. So I've been, I mean, it was since high school that I kind of decided that this is what I wanted to do for a living, in one way or another. So yeah, I think maybe junior, senior year of high school was kind of when I was like, I wanted to make a career out of this, and I wasn't sure if that was going to be teaching or just being a full-time studio artist, or I experimented with children's book illustration a little bit as well. So yeah, and went through 4 years of college and was kind of showing in like local galleries and stuff, just sort of around the state, for the most part. And then I graduated from JMU, and continued to show work and get. I mean, people always ask like, what was the big break, which I don't feel like I've ever really had like a big break. It feels like a lot of like incremental small breaks that have happened along the way.
Yeah.
Even though like if you had told me like 4 or 5 years ago that I would be doing this full time, like that would have felt like a really big break if that had just all happened at once.
Right.
But yeah, so kept showing my work after college, in galleries, and I actually taught elementary art for a couple years after college, which had its ups and downs. That was definitely pretty entertaining, but
Yeah.
I found out I was maybe not uh, super cut out for being in front of a classroom of like 25 screaming like elementary kids, like
Yeah.
throwing watercolor paint around the classroom or whatever. So,
Yeah.
but that was fun. I definitely learned some stuff from that. But yeah, so I went full time as an artist in the summer of 2019. So, and just been going strong ever since.
Nice. Well, just so
Yeah.
you know, I did teach art classes, or I assisted teaching art classes very early on in my career, and you are
Oh,
not
cool.
alone. That was not for me either.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, wonderful. So we've talked a little bit already about how you have two really distinct bodies of work. You've got the resin, you've got assemblage behind you, and you've got the resin right next to you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of perfect. So I'm just wondering if we're seeing them in process right now. Can we back up a little bit and talk about how, number one, how did each of these really different, well, seemingly different bodies of work evolve? And how do you see them in relation to one another? Do you see
Yeah.
them really related, or or you're like, no, this is like a totally like different creative expression of this half of me in my life? Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think you've said before that like resin came later, but so just sort of like place it in like a time context for us too.
Yeah. 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 The resin did come a little bit later. I think I started working on the assemblage pieces. It was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Um, was the first one of those that I did, and those came about super organically, um, just kind of accidentally almost. That I started just kind of attaching stuff together, which evolved into the pieces that I do now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and So I guess that's sort of more like what I have built my reputation on a little bit more is the assemblage pieces. Um, but I think I haven't, I've only done the resin pieces for maybe a year or a little over a year, but I feel like I've kind of always had a little bit of an inclination to do something that's much more minimal and simple and just kind of like clean, I guess. So yeah, the resin pieces specifically are new, but I kind of always had like sort of an itch to do something more in that direction.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
So okay, so I really like your artist statement, and I'm gonna recommend to anyone watching this that you pop over to our website. This it'll be in the blog as well when we make that live. But I encourage everybody to read it. It's a really interesting written piece. But one of my favorite parts of it is where you say that you sometimes play a game in the studio where the only rule is that you cannot buy new materials. So I
Hmm.
would love if you would talk more about this game that you play. And we saw your nice pile of scrap wood and salvaged salvage
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So where do you source that stuff, and how do you like go about fitting everything together to create that kind of like finished product that so seems like it was meant to be? It's all kind of you've completed the puzzle in a sense, but you made it up. It's yours. It's your creative puzzle, I guess. So yeah, can you just talk a little bit more about that kind of the game of only using things that you've not bought, they're not new?
Sure. Yeah. So that game, I think mostly refers to these. Here, I'll flip you around real quick. These smaller junk drawer pieces. That's what I
Uh,
call this series the junk drawer works. Um, and so these are 100% made up of scraps from other pieces, um, which I think is super fun to play around with because it just forces me to um, come up with new ideas and new solutions for problems that I otherwise might not be forced to do if I were able to just go to the store and buy new materials. If I kind of challenge myself to work with what I have, then that forces me to kind of like evolve creatively, I guess.
Yeah.
So, and then when we switch to the larger pieces, the same idea still permeates these works. But I do have to. So I mean, if I have scraps for these works from these paintings, then okay, well, where does the stuff come from this? So these are mostly 1/4 inch plywood that's been cut up and then
Got it.
reassembled.
And you're
Yeah,
painting on top of those, like all the
that's
shapes that
correct.
we see. Okay. I
Yeah,
had a question. There was a red piece in one of the ones you just showed us that kind of had it was, let me see if you can find it.
is it
It was
this?
kind of
Not
it was
this
an
one.
almost no, it was an almost like orangish kind of piece. There,
Uh,
that one.
oh,
So
this.
that when I saw that, like, did you cut that specifically that way, or is that painted? Did you paint that way?
So this was painted actually. Here, I'll show you. This is something that's super cool, I think, is when there's like matching pieces in different paintings. So this little orange semicircle right here is the other part of that big hourglass shape right there.
Oh wow.
So when I say that, like, I'm sort of challenging myself to not go out and buy new stuff, it's the same kind of thing where it's like I could have just cut off the edge of this right here and then just
Yeah.
said like I'm never going to use that again. But it's like
Right.
I feel like that made such a cool like statement right here. So
Yeah, I agree. And it was like one of the first things that popped out to me
yeah,
yeah, that's so funny. Cool.
yeah, no, that's a great observation. A lot of times it is those things that are like um, may have been sort of like accidental that end up becoming kind of like the focal point of a piece. So I think what's super cool about the assemblage pieces is that it allows me to like really kind of embrace those more like accidental things
Yeah.
uh, while also being like in complete control of what's going on. Um, so I don't know. That's
Yeah.
what I really like about working this way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So do you find or do you feel that the found reused um, objects that you use are important to the message or intention behind your work, or do you kind of feel that they run parallel together to one another? They're not really that essence of those pieces is not as much part of the messaging, or do you think that they're really intricate to one another?
No, I think they're super integral to the meaning of the pieces. Another thing that I like to do is here I'll flip you around real quick because this is I love incorporating stuff. Um, when I say found materials, I guess I should clarify that this is like this particularly is a piece that I bought from
Yeah.
an store. But so I love incorporating things like old rulers, um,
Cool.
and stuff like that. Um, that just gives it some character, I think, and it also gives it kind of a jumping off point where like I see these numbers here, and so that inspires me to. I don't know if that's particularly what I was thinking about when I was making these numbers, but a lot of times the shapes and the symbols in some of the found materials I have kind of influence the motifs that go through the rest of the piece.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean they're definitely super central to the theme of what I'm doing here. Yeah.
Nice. What is your favorite or what is the most rewarding part of your creative process? Is there anything that sticks out to you?
Yeah. I mean, I would say for the regarding the whole process from like start to finish, um, is honestly seeing a piece that's like just installed and it's just the perfect space, and it's like wow, like this room was made for this painting, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know, I just think that's super gratifying for me because, like I don't make paintings to just like sit over here in my storage rack. I kind of hope that they like are going to go out into the world and you know, make somebody's life better.
Yeah.
So there's that. But I guess as far as the process itself, when I'm actually making stuff, as far as the assemblage works go, I think both the most challenging and the most fun part of it is the initial phase when I'm actually putting paint on stuff and just kind of pushing paint around and just having fun with that, because that's really the most David Oleski, my friend here, says he thought the best part was getting his approval. Sorry, David.
Yeah. I liked
That's
it.
up there for sure. Yeah, no. But yeah, I mean, the initial phase of just putting paint on stuff and making marks is like, that's when I feel like there's the most freedom and I'm having the most fun. So to kind of give you an overview, like it starts with me making shapes and putting paint on things and exploring that way, and then the pieces are cut up and then reassembled. And then so later on in the process, when things are kind of being reassembled, that is pretty gratifying, but it's also, it can be super tedious and kind of challenging in that way. So, yeah, but I mean, every part of the process is interesting in its own way, I would say. And then for the resin pieces, I feel like we haven't talked about the resin pieces a whole lot. I think, oh gosh, I mean, these are really challenging because for these ones specifically, I started using an airbrush to spray them, as opposed to in the past, I'd used a roller brush to paint the piece and then paint the edges. But I loved using an airbrush because it just makes these edges so clean without
Yeah.
any masking tape or anything. And then I also used an airbrush to make these circles, which I really enjoyed, which was really nice, except that I would make, you know, this circle took about 5 seconds to make, and then I have to clean out my airbrush for like 15 minutes and then come back and do it again. So it's like a lot of cleaning to not really actually do that much painting.
Yeah.
But I don't know, for these, gosh, I would say coming into the studio after pouring the resin, like the next morning, like yesterday I poured the resin, and then this morning I just came in and found these, and they were like just perfectly cured. And it's like, oh gosh, it's just like Christmas morning coming in
Right.
and seeing it's like ready to go. So,
So the ones we carry at Sorel are solid circles. So are you going to
right.
leave those ones outlined? You're going to leave those as is, or are you going to fill them in?
Yes, no, these are as is.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's kind of a new direction that I've been experimenting with, is these like kind of softer shapes with the airbrush. So yeah,
Got it. Okay. Okay. So
yeah,
that's why I thought they were early. I thought it was earlier in the process when I first saw them from a
yeah,
distance.
yeah,
Because we,
yeah.
the ones we have are the solids. Okay. I'm following
Right.
now. Great. Cool. It does have a little bit more of like like a street art aesthetic too. You've kind of like married like a street art with a really clean, glossy, finished
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
yeah,
It's neat.
yeah. I think that
Very cool.
contrast. I think these are really about like, they're about several things, but one of the things is like contrasts of textures.
Yeah.
Um, so you have the kind of like matte texture of the paint, and then the super glossy texture of the resin, which I think is
Yeah.
super interesting. So yeah, it's definitely about contrast, like you were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Um, okay. So where do you tend to find by accident or look for inspiration if you get maybe a creative block or you just feel like you need it, or maybe it's accidental? Where would that be found
Yeah.
for you?
So I think I mentioned earlier that I love getting materials from like antique stores, picking up like rulers and stuff like that. So whenever I'm feeling kind of in a funk, I love to go to antique stores and just see what there is to see there, because there's always some interesting shapes and colors and just graphics and stuff. So the other week, I was at an antique store and I picked up this like old croquet mallet, which I think is super cool.
Wow.
I got like 5 of these for like $10. Um,
How
but
fun.
so I was thinking that this shape might be an interesting motif for my next series of paintings.
Yeah. So now in this case, would you actually be cutting that up and trying to fit like little discs into the piece somehow, or would you just kind of go like, this is a little bit more of a conceptual inspiration and I'm gonna use that shape and try to apply that like
yeah.
painted or something?
Um, so here I'm pulling out my whole box of croquet mallets here for you to see. So yeah, and I've got these
Wow.
wood blocks here too. So
How
some
fun.
occasionally these do actually make their way into pieces. Like you can see this orange like kids wood block thing. Cut the
Yeah.
end off of it here, and then that's that piece right there.
Cool.
So I'm always looking for new ways to like incorporate these materials, but I would say for these, it's mostly just like the form and the shape of it. And then even like I was having kind of a creative block the other day and wasn't sure where to go. So I just took this croquet mallet and took it to the miter saw and just like cut it in half and made this like weird L-shaped thing. So it's like, I don't know what I'm going to do with that, but it's just like, I had to do something to kind of like get out of my funk.
Yeah.
So even if it's not like making a painting, it's like, I'm just making something to kind of get the engine warmed up.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool. So your creativity sparks more creativity in that sense. You have to go
Yeah.
look for stuff, but then it kind of still flows from that like energy, creating more energy kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely
Cool.
about kind of the momentum of it. This is like this weird like ship
Yes, I've
pulley
seen
thing.
those.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was pretty sweet. So, anyways,
That's
rolling pin.
cool.
Yeah.
Rolling pin.
So
That's a
yeah,
fun
again,
shape. The rolling pin is a really fun shape
oh,
too.
I know I love it. So I'm starting to think a little bit sculpturally. Um, I
Yeah.
might not ever have any sculptural pieces that leave the studio, but it's a they'll influence the assemblage pieces if nothing else. So yeah,
Cool. That's fun. I love that.
yeah,
So we're kind of I don't know if we're not intentionally coming back to the game idea.
yeah, yeah.
A different way we are, but I wanted to ask you because so the two assemblage pieces we have at Sorel are called Baltic Ave 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I love that we were just talking about croquet mallets and all this, but so does Baltic Ave 1 and 2, where does your titling come from, specifically those pieces? Because I've read your artist statement. I look at those pieces. I think I know where it comes from, and I really like it. So I just want you to talk a little bit about how did you land on those titles?
Yeah. So I'm just like, by the way, I'm just sort of like continually taking you on a loop around my studio. Like, I don't know
That's
if you want to look
okay.
at my face more or like look at the studio more. So let me know if you want me to switch.
No,
Um,
it's fine. I think it's nice actually that you're able to kind of just like flip it around so that you can give an example of what you're talking about. With art, a lot
yeah,
of times it's really hard when you just hear people talking about it because they don't have that frame of reference. So I think it's great. Whatever feels right for you,
cool.
it's fine.
Yeah. So for the pieces that you have, the Baltic Ave 1 and 2, um, some people might recognize those names from Monopoly, and
Yeah.
so I loved playing. And as we talked about earlier, or maybe did we talk about this that a lot of these are influenced by board games? I'm not
No,
sure.
you haven't said that yet, but that is in your artist statement, which is why I
Yeah,
think everybody should
yeah.
go read it. Yeah.
So we'll talk about that more in a second. But I am super interested in board games, and particularly Monopoly. I loved playing as a kid. Um, and so Baltic Ave one and I think it's Baltic and Mediterranean Avenue, that were kind of a pair. that I always love buying. They're the first ones that you come to on the board, and I don't know, for some reason those were kind of my go-to properties to buy in Monopoly. So a lot of my titles are not. I mean, I just kind of, I think what I've been doing lately for the most part is just writing a notes list in my phone of just like terms that I think are interesting, and just like different phrases that kind of catch my ear a little bit. And then I just, whenever I need to title a series of paintings, I just go look at that notes app and kind of assign phrases to paintings, just whatever feels right, pretty much just intuitively. The same way that paintings are made, very intuitively. So I try not to think too hard about it. And yeah, I mean, titles are very much not a direct, like, I think sometimes people look at titles and they expect to like find the answers to like what, like, I don't know. I guess I'm just saying it's not like a super like direct.
It's not a driving force for you. It's kind of an afterpiece.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, the titles definitely don't have a super direct correlation to like the meaning of the piece, I guess.
Yeah.
But I do think it's still fun to title pieces. So
yeah. Yeah. And those pieces, I mean, I've looked at them and I've seen sort of like imagery that I think it was like there's kind of like an hourglass shape in one of them, I want to say, or so I've seen it in your work in general, maybe
like
mixed. Yeah, something like that. And it does have that kind. I know there's not an hourglass in Monopoly, but you know, there are hourglasses in all kinds of board games.
Sure. Yeah.
And when I saw that, I totally looked at your work in like a different light, and I really liked it. I like it. I didn't like it more or less. It opened up a different idea for me when I saw that. So, yeah, that's kind of similar. But even like I think of like almost like you've got a couple in there that once I sort of started to have that in my mind, I really looked harder at all the little details. I didn't look at it as this like whole thing. I started to look at all the individual shapes, and I could see where that maybe some of that inspiration came from. So that's cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
So if you could give one piece of advice to yourself as a younger artist, what would it be?
Yeah. I think one of the big things would just be to not be like scared of admitting like what I really want from my career. I think early on I was maybe a little bit afraid to set goals because it was just thinking about what I needed to do to accomplish those goals was pretty daunting. And so nowadays I'm very articulate with my goals. And I think that's helped a lot. Because I feel like I try to wake up every day and it's like, okay, like what one step can I take today to get to where I want to be? Versus a few years ago, it was kind of like, well, I guess I'll like make some paintings today and you know, I'm an artist. That's what I'm supposed to do. Which I'm doing the same thing now, but it feels like it has so much more of a like clear direction. And a lot of that is related to like sales, which feels a little shallow, but at the same time, it's like, that's what I need to have the resources and like this studio to be able to make the work that I want to make, and have the time to make the work that I want to make. So yeah. And then also just in terms of being in galleries, you know, I think that's one of the big goals. That it's like a few years ago, it was like it was so daunting and intimidating to submit to galleries. So I did, but I didn't do it with as much confidence and like owning it as much as I really do now, where I'm like, I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm like expecting to get into every gallery that I submit to, but it's kind of like I know that I'm on that level, I guess. Um, so I would say that is advice that I would have given to a younger me, is to just kind of um, be more confident and like own my goals and own what I really want out of my career.
Right. That's good career advice, I think, in general, not just for artists, but yeah, that's a good one. Um, so taking a broader view, what is your goal as an artist now?
Yeah. I think my primary goal is to challenge myself creatively and have fun, which are two things that go hand in hand. Um, but if I just said have fun, like if that's my only goal, then that could be taken in a way that's like maybe more indulgent and like, okay, I'm just gonna like sit around and like watch TV all day. Like that sounds like fun, but I'm not really challenging myself. So for me to like
Yeah.
really have fun, there needs to be also some times where it's like I don't really know where the heck this painting is going, and it's like kind of stressful. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that's my main goal. And then if I'm doing that, hopefully my work is also challenging and inspiring other people and helping them be more curious. So I would say that's also a big goal, is that my work would help to challenge and inspire other people creatively.
I have, well, I was just saying that like after I read your artist statement, I started like looking at all the tiny little shapes. So that worked for me. I was very
Awesome.
curious. I definitely like, yeah, I definitely started to like, dive into all the little tiny details I could find. So yeah, you were a success story with this viewer over here. Okay. Sorry, were you going to say anything else?
No.
Okay. So we're going to wrap up now. I just have a couple more questions. We do this at the end of all of our, sort of studio tour and interviews. We go away a little bit away from art. So they're just quick questions. So first one is tea or coffee?
I'm a Frappuccino guy. I'm not sure if that really counts. I could go for
It counts.
caramel crunch Frappuccino or whatever. That's my thing.
Okay, that's coffee, but yes, that's
guy.
all right. Fair Frappuccino. Okay, fair enough.
I have a milkshake for breakfast the other morning, so my wife.
What was that?
I said my wife can attest that I had a milkshake for breakfast, but okay.
That's
anyway.
okay. That's okay. Yeah, you're living life. That's okay.
Yeah.
Morning person or night owl?
I would say morning for work, night for having fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. More mountains or beach?
Mountains.
Okay. Cake or pie?
Pie.
And last but not least, what is your favorite place on earth?
So on the write up you sent me, I think I said Pisgah Forest, North Carolina, which is a super national forest. I was thinking about that since, and I think I might amend that to say Lattimore, North Carolina, which is my grandfather's hometown, and it has a lot of sentimental value to me. So it's just a super small town, and just kind of in the middle of redneck North Carolina, but I love it. So
cool. I mean, my dog was named after a small town in North Carolina.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
We got her in Mount Airy, and her name is Airy.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Cameron. We've been talking for almost 40 minutes now, so it's been a really amazing tour. I'll let you go get back to work and making all the amazing things that you make. For anybody who is watching, we're going to post a written blog, so if you didn't catch all of it, you can read the oh yeah, there's everything again. So someone just asked late to the interview, will this be on replay? Yes, it will be. I'm going to post it, and it will also be embedded in the blog that we're gonna post on our website. So I'll put all the information in our stories once we get all of that live. So just stay tuned. Follow us, follow Cameron, so that you get all the newest updates. from each of us. And thank you everybody who came, and thank you again, Cameron.
Hey, thank you so much, Christine. It was great talking with you.
Yeah, great talking to you too. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks. You too.
Great. Bye-bye.